I read this book every year. I find that it makes me happier, alleviates some of my anxiety, and helps me to worry less. This book is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and this video will be broken into 4 parts. We'll start with a little background on the author and how that deeply shapes the contents of this book. Then we'll discuss the general synopsis, followed by a brief explanation of each of the 4 agreements. And finally, we'll go into my overall thoughts on the book, and you'll find out if I recommend it, and if so, to whom. So let's get into it. The Four Agreements was written by Don Miguel Ruiz, and he was born and raised in rural Mexico by a family of healers. His family hoped that he would carry on the tradition of healing and teaching, which is something that dated back centuries for them. But, and these are their words, not mine, he got distracted by medical school and decided to become a surgeon. Hopefully that sentiment gives you some sense of how important this knowledge, which they call the Toltec, is to them. Don Miguel Ruiz was in a car accident in the 1970s, which nearly killed him and his friends. He states that he remembers not being in his physical body, but was able to pull his friends back to safety. After that experience, he decided to devote his life teaching the ancient wisdoms of his people, and from that came this book. It opens with an explanation of how we all came to develop our current belief systems. He states that the world has many rules, and we start to learn these rules at a very early age, starting with our parents and our schools and religions, if applicable. Through the years, we begin to learn what's right and what's wrong, what's acceptable and what's not, basically how to behave in a society, and in turn, we start to develop certain beliefs that we hold true about the world around us. And while it may be true that we didn't choose many of the beliefs that we hold today, it is true that we agreed to them, or else we would have found a way to let go of them over the years. And with these beliefs, we start to develop these images in our head, both of ourselves and how we need to behave in order to be accepted by others, but also about people that we know and meet. We have these beliefs about how people should be, and that leads us to judging people when they don't meet our standards or our pre-existing definitions. He states that a lot of the agreements that we have today are actually holding us back from happiness, and that if we can learn to let go of a couple of those or adopt these 4 new agreements, we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. So, what are these agreements? The first agreement is seen as the foundation to the following 3, and that is to be impeccable with your word. And basically what that means is understanding that words carry weight, both positive and negative. There's a quote in this chapter that I love, which compares our words to a double-edged sword, where we can create beautiful dreams or destroy everything around us with just the words that we speak. Using a day-to-day example, think about if you've ever got a genuine compliment from a stranger and how that likely lifts you and sticks with you the entire day. Conversely, if someone says something mean to you or treats you nastily, it's likely to have somewhat of an impact, even if it's small, even if it's fleeting. He goes on to say that the words that people use have the power to change our belief systems, and again, this works in either direction, particularly when someone tells us their opinion of us and we choose to believe it. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. As we've gone over already, there's so many things that factor into our existing views of the world, where everything that we say and that we do and the opinions that we have are a reflection of the agreements that we've made. So through that same lens, nothing that other people do is because of you, it's because of themselves. This may bring to mind the quote, "Your perception of me is a reflection of you." In this chapter, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about how like attracts like, and that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So if the things around you are great and make you happy, if you're with positive people and engaging in positive experiences, it's only natural that your world in general will become more positive. And with that, the opposite is true too. One perspective that he offers in this chapter is taking things personally is the maximum form of selfishness, because you make things about you and that might not be the case. But one thing I can make about you is asking you to give this video a thumbs up to help the channel in exchange for my appreciation before we head into the third agreement, which is don't make assumptions. He states that the issue with making assumptions is that we believe them and we operate as though they are the truth. We're afraid to ask for clarification and we lack the courage to ask questions. But the questions are swirling around in our minds and they need answers. So what do? We tell ourselves stories via assumptions that we make in an effort to fill the knowledge gap and quiet the reasoning mind. And it doesn't even matter if the answers are correct or not. Just having an answer of any type makes us feel safe. Don Miguel Ruiz talks about how in relationships, we can often be blinded by our feelings and ignore red flags when they arise. Sometimes we'll make assumptions like, my love will make this person change, when we all know that the reason that people change is because they want to. He states here, real love is accepting other people the way they are without trying to change them. If we try to change them, this means we don't really like them. So finding someone that we really like is always going to be easier and healthier than taking someone that we don't like and trying to mold them into the perfect person for us. Just how the first agreement was the foundation for the following three, the fourth and final agreement is the action of the previous three, and that is always do your best. What I like about this chapter is that the author states that we have to remember that our best won't always be the same from one moment to the next. Some days we'll be able to give more than others, but as long as we're able to remember it's the best under the circumstances that we're operating under in that moment and not a comparison to any other time, that's all that matters. He states, when you do your best, you learn to accept yourself, but you have to be aware and learn from your mistakes. Learning from your mistakes means that you practice, look honestly at the results, and keep practicing. This increases your awareness. If we're on this mission to break some of the existing beliefs that we have and adopt new ones, it's unrealistic to think that that will be a fast or a smooth process. We are creatures of habit, and any amount of change comes with some speed bumps along the way. Doing our best is all that we can and should expect from ourselves. Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about this book. As I mentioned at the top of the video, it's a book that I read every single year, usually in January, as a way to realign my mindset for the upcoming year. This was the first year that I read this book and I found myself not aligning with things the same way that I did previously. There are a lot of things in this book that I never aligned with. For instance, there's a lot of talk of black magic and white magic. And I'm not at all a fan of colored language in literature, especially as it relates to good and evil. He refers to saying bad things to and about other people as casting spells, and gives an example where he sees a friend and says, I see that kind of color in your face in people who are going to get cancer. If he listens to this word and if he agrees, he will have cancer in less than 1 year. That is the power of the word. Nope. Not how that works. He also says that if we learn to not take things personally, we can never be hurt by what other people say or do, which I feel is a bit extreme and unrealistic. I understand the importance of religion and deities in his culture, but I found that this book was a bit over-religious at times. And while it's full of stories and explanations and anecdotes, it definitely does feel over-explained in some areas. Some of the language in here really started to grate on me too. For instance, when talking about being impeccable with your word, he gives a story about Hitler and says, take the example of Hitler. He sent out all those seeds of fear and they grew very strong and beautifully achieved mass destruction. Beautifully? My dude. Ethnic cleansing that led to the death of about 6 million Jewish people is a tragedy of epic proportions. Granted, on the page prior, he did describe this as an atrocious act of violence, but I think there are other ways to talk about how Hitler was able to orchestrate genocide without using the word beautifully. Whew, I'm getting hot. Let's move on. I found some of the language to be quite vague at times, requiring decipher on the reader's behalf. For example, he continually refers to the dream of the planet, and it wasn't clear to me if that meant societal expectations or cultural norms, or wasn't there an entire section in here about us not making assumptions and employing clear communication? My feelings on this book have changed a bit over time. While I like and find the 4 agreements themselves to be things that I align with, there's a lot in this book that I could do without. The agreement that resonates with me the most is don't make assumptions, followed by always do your best. I stated earlier that this book has made me happy, alleviated some of my anxiety, and helped me to worry less. And these 2 agreements alone do that for me. I know that if I give my best to everything that I'm doing and give those around me the benefit of the doubt, that takes me a pretty long way. I think this is best suited for people who want a book that very clearly explains how to be a happier person. The 4 agreements themselves are a means to an end, which is realizing that life is a lot better when you accept yourself, are positive and open and communicative in your relationships, and continually try your best. So I think it's important that if you choose to read this book, you take what aligns with you and you leave the rest. I initially gave this book a 4-star rating, but now I'm starting to reconsider that. But if you're interested in a book that I gave 5 stars, an absolute banger, you can check out my review of Such a Fun Age right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.